Well, the first thing we learned from the gospel reading today is that Satan can quote scripture better than any Episcopalian. Rapid fire, Bible memory. He's got that all covered. Now, last week, during the announcements, we were reminded that our commitment to a women's lectionary for the whole church, which we've been using throughout Epiphany, had come to its end because Epiphany came to an end. We've done this 2 years in a row. And the disappointment that you could feel in the room was palpable. And my moaning and groaning persisted this week, having to wrestle with our traditional translation of our Genesis account of Adam and Eve. Because, and it's even worse because it was shortened today. The longer version, I actually look forward to, because at least it gives everybody more time to moan and groan and hiss and chuckle, especially if you remember the part about the broader text where the most common sign language of all humanity is used. Finger pointing. The devil made me do it. The woman made me do it. Why did you have to make that fruit so delicious looking? Think about it for a minute. Maybe own a little of your finger pointing as to who you might be blaming for something right now. Because it's part of the story. But I'm happy to return to the Reverend Dr. Will Gaffney for help with this text, which helps us understand the story of Adam and Eve, perhaps in a way that is more applicable to our situation. For one thing, Adam originally is not a man. Did you know that? The meaning of the original word, ha'adamah, is actually a word used for crafting pottery. Think clay. Think earth. As the story unfolds, God then divides this clay into Ish and Isha, man and woman. In fact, in Hebrew, the word tzelah means side, not rib. It's often referred to one entire side of the ark in certain places of the Hebrew Scriptures. So the original creation story is more like clay being divided into two parts. The point here is man does not predate woman. They are co-created from Adama, or human. Woman is not an afterthought, created to soothe the man. I suspect you already knew that. But I just wanted to ground it in the original language. Valerie Bridgman, Dean and Associate Professor of Homiletics and Hebrew Bible at the Methodist Theological School in Ohio, writes this, that Christian interpretation has managed to teach it's the woman's fault. She also goes on to say that this interpretation ought to be an insult to men, as it portrays men as weak and feckless and unable to hold their own boundaries or decisions to obey or not obey God. This sentiment is reflected in questions turned onto women when they have been sexually assaulted. Words like, "What were you wearing?" Now, I won't presume to know what the knowledge of good and evil entails. That's a big question. But it has gotten us into a mess, I know that much. Here's what can be said. Whatever this knowledge entailed, the man also had a choice. And if this knowledge is simply a way to describe evolution or the discovery of consciousness, then we ought to see men and women as allies in growth. In fact, more than men and women. People who are non-binary, people who also are part of the clay, part of the earthy reality of the emergence of the human race. The apple contained truth serum that included, you are going to die. I mean, that probably is the most prevalent reality of consciousness, is it not? We look at our animals, or look at creation and the joy that is there, but why do we carry the awareness that this is short-lived? It's a heavy burden. It entails suffering of all kinds. So, happy Lent. Basically, this story could be seen as a reminder of our earthiness, our clayness. A call to remember that we are dust, but that this dust, or mud, as Thich Nhat Hanh would say, is necessary for the lotus to grow. Lent is about accepting the dirty messiness of life, not as a punishment, but as a necessary part of growth. Resist the soil, you lose the flower. There is so much flowering that can occur in the midst of our own weakness, as our collect points out. This is not about gaining strength. This is about being in touch with our earthy fragility, our earthy reality. And I think these insights empower how we interpret the temptation of Jesus. It might just be that the way the temptation ties into all of this is that we are called to be human first. That when we move away from that piece of it, as we see in the interpretation of Garden of Eden, we get ourselves into all kinds of trouble and blame. We end up with great deals of pride, not humility. We're called to be human first, not man or woman, not black or white, not documented or undocumented, not gay or straight or trans. We are human first. This is the call to Lent, to return to being in touch with our humanity. So the way forward, if you will, is backward, returning to our very earthy origin and identifying both personally and corporately what that means, where we have come from, what we are made of. And this is what Jesus does in the story. He embraces humanity. Notice that the so-called temptations of the devil are not in and of themselves evil or even bad. Jesus does use faith to provide bread to the crowds. Jesus does demonstrate profound trust in God's ability to catch us when we fall. Jesus does offer us the world, but to love, not control. In contrast, the devil offers us environmental degradation and dominance, inviting us to manipulate creation for our own purposes, turning stones into bread. The devil offers us spectacle, asking us to leap from tall buildings instead of the miracle of God's assurance, which holds us through difficult times. The devil offers authoritarianism to exert power and ownership over the world instead of spreading the power of love and sense of community. What the devil is doing is asking Jesus to be godlike, not demon-like. We have it backwards. But Jesus smiles at this and embraces his humanity. He's trying to send Jesus back to heaven. Go back to where you came from. But Jesus comes to remind us that God is actually in humanity, in the mess of who we are. The story invites us back to our humanity. We are humans first. Humility and human come from the word humus, earth, clay. Humanity in its truest state is one of humility, acceptance, and trust. Understanding our humanity will help us holster our finger and stop blaming others. Those of you that were here for Ash Wednesday noticed something quite different, much like what we experienced today in the liturgy. A little different, right? We've got the confession already done. Lots of things. Get the commandments out of the way. And so too with the Ash Wednesday service. So, liturgical work that the church is doing, and we're very blessed to have Kathleen on top of all of this, had us put the ashes right up front. First thing. First focal point. And I can just tell you that as a preacher, how freeing that is to me. You know, sometimes we stand up here and we think, I don't know what we think. We're trying to make a difference. We're trying to help in some way. But how refreshing it is to know, to look out on the congregation and just see the mess of the congregation. You know? Ash all over your face. Doesn't matter how much makeup you wear. No one will notice because you've got stuff on your face. Doesn't matter what you wear, how you look. And to see everybody messy. Its ensemble is totally ruined. Is moving. It almost made me feel like I wish everybody could come up and look from where I was standing and see everybody confessing that life is a mess, that this fits quite well. That is moving to me. May our Lenten journey be one not just of remembering who we are, but accepting who we are. We are human. It's okay. And remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Embrace your earthiness with humility and with the awareness that God has never left you and is right in the middle of the mess. Right there, in the middle of it all. Let's embrace an awareness that God is right there in our humus. I wonder what harvest our humility